Thank you. So I encourage you all to enter your name in the chat window, and if you're associated with an organization in town, to enter that too. Part of the point of these meetings is really for us to sort of strengthen the web of everything that's being done to address homelessness. And so we really want to make sure that we are getting connected to each other in the process. So part of that will be if you hear someone today share something that is of interest to you, I really encourage you to reach out to that person and have a conversation offline because we really want this web to strengthen so that we can do more together. So with that, I want to just jump in with a few general announcements about what this is and what we're all doing here with a very brief overview of everything. Because the question that gets asked a lot is, what is being done about homelessness? Um, and the brief answer to that question is both, and I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my window here. The brief answer to that question is both quite a bit and not enough, right? There is a lot being done throughout our whole community to address homelessness, but of course, it's never enough. And so part of our goal in these meetings is to both educate ourselves about what is happening, as well as to identify where are some of those areas where we need to do more. So just wanted to note that at a county level, there is a county-wide coalition called the Continuum of Care that is working really hard to address homelessness throughout our entire county. In the South County region, this meeting is a part of the Act on Homelessness Collaborative. So we have a South County specific coalition under SB Act. I encourage you to check both of these out. This is really kind of the two big structures that you're going to hear referenced a lot today. And then there are a lot of even smaller localized initiatives as well. But just want to acknowledge there are significant efforts under both of these kind of umbrellas. There are quite a few ways just for you to be aware and informed about how to respond to homelessness issues. The cities of Santa Barbara and Goleta and the county of Santa Barbara all have homelessness response directories with lots of different phone numbers for you to call if you see someone in crisis, if you see an encampment, if you see illegal dumping, whatever the issue may be. There's different ways to address those issues so that they can be more quickly resolved. So I really want to encourage you to go to our website here, sbac.org/AOH. There are links to all of these directories. Encourage you to check that out, download them, and reach out to us if you have questions about any of that. Also want to note that in partnership with the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara, SB Act has opened a daytime navigation center in downtown Santa Barbara, the Faro Center. And this is intended as kind of like a homelessness collaborative space. So we've got about 20 to 30 different nonprofits and government agencies that provide services here throughout the week. And this is a newer initiative just to be able to offer all of those services on a daily basis, Monday to Friday, 9 to 3. So you can see some of the info on the right. We do have little plastic cards that you can hand out to individuals who are experiencing homelessness as you see a need. But we really want to keep encouraging people to spread the word about this new resource. We're using it really as a hub for homelessness, and so we're able to host meetings here as well. And just want to make sure everyone in the community is aware. I wanted to bring up just a couple of general announcements before we jump in with some of our specific topics today. Number one is that every year there are a group of individuals who have experienced homelessness who help host the Longest Night Memorial. And this is a nationwide memorial for those who have passed away unsheltered in the last year. There will be a brief interfaith vigil as well as a time when the names of those individuals are actually read aloud. So it's a really powerful and meaningful evening on what is literally the longest night of the year, the winter solstice. So we want to invite you all to join us. You can see the RSVP link is at sbac.org/longest night. I might ask Kai to put that in the chat window if you can. Next, I just want to mention the warming shelters, the warming centers, and I might have Catherine share more about this. But this is just for those of you who are not aware, this is something that is activated every year under the County of Santa Barbara and managed by a Good Samaritan as a way for those who maybe are not staying in a shelter currently to have a place to go when it's either wet outside or below 35 degrees. There is a new hotline this year, and that's important for you all as community members because you can call this phone number on any given day to find out if the warming center is activated that night or not. Um, and so I encourage you to put that in your phone if you don't have it already. Catherine, do you want to share anything else about this just while I have it up?
No, you covered that well, but there's also an email that you can sign up for to receive notifications when they do activate. So you have a couple of options to get those notifications.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you send an email to that email address listed below, fwc@goodsamaritan.shelter.org, you can join that email list. Okay, just a few other announcements, I promise. Uh, okay, every year, counties across the US are required by the federal government to host a point in time count. This is a count of everyone who is experiencing homelessness in that jurisdiction. So our county is hosting our count on Wednesday, January 22nd. It starts at 5:30 in the morning and runs till 9, so it's an early day, but we need hundreds of volunteers across the entire county. We have to be able to spread out to cover every single census tract to make sure that we're getting an accurate count of everyone who is homeless in our community. So I really want to encourage you all, if you haven't already, please help us out by signing up to volunteer. It is an early morning, but it's also a very rewarding morning, and it's a one-time commitment. You're not signing your life away outside of this. There will be trainings on how to do the point in time count on Zoom in January. And even if you are already volunteering, if you can't volunteer, one of the other really important ways to help us is by spreading the word. We do have these flyers available. I would love to be able to share them with you all. So please help us by spreading the word on social media, share it with your friends. We just need a lot of volunteers throughout our whole county. So we really encourage you. And this data is really important because this informs the kind of resources that we're able to get for our county for homelessness initiatives. So it's really important that we get an accurate count so that we can track sort of where we're at a point in time in January. So I encourage you, if you can, volunteer, help spread the word. All right. So that's about enough from me. I'm going to turn it over now to Catherine Soto Vasquez with the County of Santa Barbara to share with us a bit about encampment response in our county. And Catherine's going to share more, but I just want to note there's a lot of different kinds of ways of thinking of encampments, even vehicular encampments, and our county's working to try to address all of these. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Catherine, I believe you have privileges to share yours.
Great. Let me see. Okay, how does that look?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see some familiar faces. For a few of you that don't know me, my name is Catherine Soto Vasquez. I'm with the County of Santa Barbara Community Services Department in the new role of, or my new role of encampment resolution response manager. Lucille Boss was in the role previously, and she's transitioned as affordable housing manager with our team. So kudos to her, and I'm glad to be back and working with you all. As Landon's saying, I'm gonna give us an update on our encampment response specific to the South County, and let's just get started. Sorry. Next slide. Oops. Yep. All right. So our protocol underscores the importance of responding to issues of homelessness with compassion and care and is intended to serve as a part of the county's larger strategy to address homelessness. The approved encampment resolution strategy is a 3-year effort from 2021 to 2024 to increase access to shelter, leverage long-term rental subsidies, create new permanent housing units, ensure robust outreach and engagement, and sustain adequate funding. As I mentioned, it's a 3-year effort. We are in the middle of reviewing our 3rd year and collecting data, and we'll have a report complete for the community early in 2025. So for today, I just want to review some of the key highlights and updates from our teams. The goals and performance measures set forth in the encampment resolution strategy are intended to improve the safety and cleanliness of streets and open spaces, meet the housing, shelter, and services referral needs, improve the medical and behavioral health of individuals, and deliver coordinated services to effectively address and resolve encampments. The third year of our strategy implementation presented many successes, including the expansion of and deployment of the new outreach teams. Our SURF team, specifically SURF 2 that's dedicated to waterways, has special, or the funding has allowed them to expand their teams with a focus on behavioral and physical health. There is new permanent housing in Galita, such as Buena Tierra, which ended homelessness for a number of people who were previously in encampments. We had new interim housing development in the unincorporated area of South Santa Barbara County, known as La Posada, which resolved a large encampment dangerously near the railroad and creeks by moving people into a safe and secure, healthy community indoors and with pathways to permanent housing. Our response protocol is only as effective as the system of care that we have that has adequate shelter, housing, and services. And while our service providers are proving to be effective housers, there's still always opportunity for us to strengthen our system and work toward better shelter retention. I think that's something that we're really having discussions now where we're reaching our limits of how many more shelters, interim housing units that we can develop. And so now we really want to focus on our ability to effectively and efficiently turn over our beds within our shelter, making sure that the people that are residing in the shelters are staying and utilizing those services, but also, staying in a timely manner that they're able to move out of the shelter and into housing to allow more flow. So specifically going into our teams, we have 2 dedicated teams focused to encampments funded by the California Encampment Resolution Funding. SURF 2 is dedicated to focus on waterways throughout the county, and this is specifically with Good Samaritan. And not going into the details of their outcomes, I do want to just note, though, and highlight that for the last year in South County specifically, they've been able to house 33 individuals and place 63 individuals into shelter. It's really important. I want to just, again, give them kudos for the hard work that they're doing in navigating our system while La Posada allowed us to create beds specifically for encampments and waterways. The team has done a great job of not only placing individuals within that shelter, but really going out of that option and utilizing all of the resources available, sheltering people from the rescue mission, PATH, Salvation Army. So just kudos to them for always going beyond the resources that are made available to them and just utilizing our entire system of care. In keeping on with collaboration, we partner with the city of Santa Barbara when we are tackling encampments, and some of the areas that are kind of always a priority and tend to be a hotspot, if you will, are East Beach and Mission Creek. So we're always having conversations, we're meeting to see how we can collectively, what resources we have to tackle these encampments in an effective manner. And in that photo, we have Barbara, Jeff, and Floyd that, really their success paints a story of our system and how no one organization can support someone. When they started receiving services, they were receiving services through CityNet, and then they connected with the Good Sam to enter La Posada. And then while at the shelter there, because Barbara's a veteran, she was able to connect to SSVF provider and get the full services that they're available for veterans, and ultimately has led them to their housing opportunity. So again, it's a full spectrum of services from outreach into shelter, and even collaborating with other organizations that can provide specialized support. Now going to SURF 3. It's dedicated to vehicular homelessness, working with New Beginnings, our community's very much established safe parking program, national model. Some key highlights here, just wanting to notate that each calendar year since the beginning of 2021, we've seen a steady increase of individuals living in vehicles enrolling in services, um, an, again, an attest, oops, a huge accomplishment for New Beginnings and the work that they're doing to have that steady increase in engagement over the years. Since 2023 and 2024, we're seeing that our folks that are unsheltered, over half of them, or just about half of them, are living in their vehicles. So the need for us, which is why we were able to apply and receive California encampment resolution funds for folks dedicated in vehicles, um, was because we were really seeing that need within our community and wanting to prioritize that. Some trends that we're seeing for folks living in their vehicles are a large number of individuals are seniors, which is something that we'll see later on in the slides that I point out as a challenge, is that we don't necessarily have a lot of board and care facilities dedicated to serve seniors and individuals with that level of need. So that's a continued concern that we're seeing. Oops, sorry. We're seeing more and more families residing in vehicles as well. So that's another trend. And then just our Surf 3 team, we are only 6 months into the program now. And so far in South County, they've been able to enroll 88 individuals, which equate to about 65 vehicles, and have housed 13 individuals. That group is also, they have created a lived experience focus group dedicated for trying to understand, where are the needs, what are the needs that are not being met for people that are living in their vehicles. And that is led by folks enrolled in their program, and they're meeting on a quarterly basis to discuss and kind of review how the program is doing and where they can make improvements. And right now we're having discussions countywide about what it looks like to expand safe parking lots, specifically for day and evening use. That's something that, or sorry, day use, that is really needed in particular for RVs. We do have safe parking lots, but they're limited space, and we're not really able to accommodate oversized vehicles and RVs. So that's really where we're seeing the need is, with more and more individuals living in larger vehicles. So that's really kind of what we're hoping to have a discussion and strategize around how this program can help expand those lots. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, our 3-year strategy is over. And so we are at the point of review. So we're reviewing our protocol. We've met with a couple of stakeholders and just to discuss particularly the oh wait, sorry, I'm spacing right now. Reviewing the protocol, and I'll put in the chat too if you haven't seen it. It's the link to our actual protocol, so you can read through it. And there's also resources on our county page there for people experiencing homelessness. I'll put those in the chat in a second. But we are reviewing with our stakeholders the potential for adjusting our protocol in ways specifically around storage and noticing. So right now, our policy says that we have to notify and post an encampment 72 hours in advance, and we offer 90-day of storage. And so just looking at potentially reducing the storage from 90 days to 60 days and the 72 hours to 48 hours. So no major changes other than that, our board approved protocol is pretty thorough. And a lot of work went into it in collaboration with different agencies and cities across the county. So we feel pretty confident about its effectiveness. And you will see that in the 3 year report, looking back over the last couple of years, all the work that was complete, but just wanting to see, um, if there's areas for improvement. And so you all have the ability, like I said, we've been meeting with stakeholders and want to give you all the opportunity as well. If you're interested in giving feedback, you can email me, and the email is er@countyofsantabarbara.org. That email is also utilized if you have any encampment or outreach needs. That'll go to myself and a couple of other people on the team, and we will support any best way that we can. So that's the presentation that I had.
Thank you. Can I just ask, uh,
Yeah.
so that with the 3 year strategic plan ending, is the goal to create a new 3 year plan?
So that's what we're looking at right now internally. I think a lot of that discussion is going to come after reviewing all of the data and the outcomes and understanding, what was effective and what was not. I think the most important thing is we were able to acquire more funding to sustain some of the protocol in terms of debris removal. In the beginning, it was only for a year, and then we were able to extend it now well into 2026, as well as a couple of our outreach teams. So the work won't stop. How it will look necessarily, though, I think we're still in that process.
And then just one other thing I wanted to note, because we've got a handful of people on these calls who are regularly show up to like the neighborhood wrap meetings. And just want to clarify too for you all that there's different places to report different kinds of encampments or encampments in different locations. And so if you're, for example, in the city of Santa Barbara and it's not a waterway, then you do want to continue using that SB Connect link to make sure we can get people the services they need. But for these specific groups that Catherine's been talking about, waterways, vehicular, it is really important to contact the right person.
And even, that's part of my role is working not just within the county but also collaborating with the different jurisdictions. So we there's plenty of times that we get emails from a constituent, someone living in a neighborhood, and they're unsure of who to contact, and so because they know this email, they'll reach out to me, and then I help direct them an appropriate either person, or if it's the city or county, us, whichever department it needs to be.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah, why
having
don't
trouble with my links to put in the chat, so I will do that in a second.
you're good. Are there questions for Catherine? I'm not seeing any. Um, we will look forward to seeing the 3 year presentation once all the data is compiled. Um, yeah, and we appreciate you being here today with us.
Yeah, of course. And if you don't have any questions now, you can email me in that. I will again put that in the chat. Any questions, any follow up, if you have feedback for our protocol, don't hesitate to reach out.
You do have a hand raised from Cassie.
Cassie.
I just wanted to share some more good news, I guess, in that since we last gave those numbers, we've now enrolled 177 individuals and housed a total of 49 through the SURF3 project.
That's
So,
great. So that's again focused on vehicular homelessness.
yeah.
Sorry, just clarification on mine. The just data that I presented was only for South County.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to pull my screen back up just because I noted there are different ways to report things. Catherine, as she mentioned, is collaborating with all of these folks and vice versa. So if you report it, it to the wrong place, it's going to end up in the right place. But we do just want to make sure you all know that really the county's big focuses right now are waterways and vehicular encampments. If you have encampment questions or concerns in any of these other regions, there are other ways that are slightly more direct to report those, because each city has its own encampment response protocols. And some of the city staff I see from the city of Santa Barbara are even on this call who manage encampment response. So we just want to encourage you all to maybe screenshot this, and yeah, make sure you note all the different ways there are to report. If you see somebody who's in need, this is a great way to help make sure they get services, and also just to make sure and keep the community safe and clean. All right. Well, thank you, Catherine. Appreciate you being here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it now to our presentation with regard to behavioral health. So there have been quite a few changes at the state level, new initiatives, new funding, new policies. Today, we're going to be talking about just one of those, the CARE courts, or the CARE Act, and how it pertains to the CARE courts. And so we have Suzanne Grimacy here with the Department of Behavioral Wellness. I want to just note, as well as Susan is starting, that there is some confusion sometimes because people have heard about all these different acts and Senate bills. There is Proposition 1, which changed as a reform of how we fund behavioral health in our state. There was also Senate Bill 43, which is around like conservatorships or involuntary detentions. This is separate from those, but of course they all interact. So Suzanne, I'm hoping maybe you can at least mention that today as you specifically talk about the CARE courts. But with
Yes,
that, let me
absolutely.
make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna just a minute here. Let me share. I don't see. All right. Do you see the slide that says CARE Court?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start with walking you through a few slides of CARE Court or CARE Act, and I'll explain the semantics. It shouldn't take more than probably 10 minutes, and then I will be sure to touch on SB 43. We'll talk on Prop 1 as well, and then any questions I have, you're welcome to ask while I'm talking, but it's just a brief slide deck, and you're also welcome to ask any questions afterwards. So let me start with saying that you will very likely see CARE Court and CARE Act used interchangeably. The intent of using CARE Act, which we are in Santa Barbara County, as is many or most other counties, is to destigmatize for those that may be involved, any stigma surrounding the court process, but it's the exact same act, same bill, same thing. So what is CARE Act? So the CARE stands for Community Assistance Recovery and Empowerment Act. It was approved by Governor Newsom in fall of 2022. It's also known as a new framework for getting people with very specific, and we'll go over that criteria, untreated mental health and or co-occurring disorders, the support and the care that they need. That was the intent behind the bill when it went through. It's important to note that it's a voluntary option to aid in providing support. It is a civil court process, so it's not a criminal court process, and it's not a mandatory process in any way. So what is it? It's a voluntary civil court process, again, designed to treat very specific diagnoses of untreated mental illness. May also include co-occurring substance use disorders. Those involved in the CARE Act or CARE Court process will have an individualized treatment plan. Behavioral wellness is the one that puts together the plan, and then it goes under the oversight of a judge. CARE Act is not intended to be a criminal court with forced treatment. Well, it is not. Not only is it not intended, it's not intended for all mental health conditions, although there's a caveat to that, which I'll explain. And it's not intended to be a solution for homelessness. Now, what I'll say before I go to the next slide that looks at the very specific criteria, I'm certain that you will look at and say, wow, that's like really, really narrow. And it is. And so for those that fit the criteria, I think this is a wonderful option. But there's many that won't. However, what we in Santa Barbara County, behavioral wellness, as well as other counties as the state throughout the state are reinforcing is that when a petition goes in for someone for the Care Court or Care Act, if they don't fit the criteria, we are still going to actively involve them in our outreach and engagement efforts and do everything we can to try and get that person engaged in services. So it may not be Care Act or Care Court, but it would be something else. Okay, now the eligibility criteria. The person has to be 18 years of age or older. They have to have a diagnosis of a severe mental illness, and that diagnosis has to be schizophrenia or another psychotic disorder, so very narrow. The person cannot be considered clinically stable if they are in ongoing voluntary treatment at the time that the petition is filed. And also the person must be currently experiencing symptoms or behaviors related with their mental health condition. The cause of psychosis cannot be as a result of traumatic brain injury, autism, dementia, substance use disorders. So it's for purely the biological diagnosis of a psychotic disorder, schizophrenia. And they can't be already stabilized in treatment. And what that means is if someone files a petition and says, this person has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, they're doing really, really well right now, but they are at risk for relapse, they would not be considered eligible. So at the time of the petition, they're experiencing active symptoms. Okay. This slide is very busy, and I'll send this to you so you'll have it more as a reference, but we pull it up just as a way to kind of show the flow of the Care Court process. So the way it works is somebody would complete a petition for a respondent or someone they believe may meet the criteria or benefit from Care Act. It could be the respondent themselves, probably won't be as many coming from that avenue, but it could be. It could be a family member. It could be someone that lives with the respondent. It could be one of you. It could be law enforcement. There's a whole gamut of who would complete the petition. When a petition is to be filed, and I'll interject this now, there's a couple of ways to support or provide help for people, because if you look at the petition itself, and I'll tell you how you can get to it, it looks very busy, it looks very daunting, but it's actually much, much, much simpler and easier than it looks at face value. So a couple of things. All counties had to designate a Care Act information line, and most counties, including ourselves, use our access line for that line. So our access line screeners have had more training than most on the Care Act so that they can help to answer questions, so they can help to direct people on our website to where more information is, to the petition itself, things like that. In addition, we have NAMI, and the Mental Wellness Center has 2 opportunities every week. One's in person, one's over phone, where people can walk directly in or call on the phone and say, I need help filling this thing out. Like, I can't do it, it's too hard. And so they'll help to walk them through the actual completion of the petition. So it's on Wednesdays. I always get these hours confused, but I'll send them to you. Wednesdays, I believe it's 3 to 5 or 3:30 to 5:30 at the Mental Wellness Center, where people can walk in. They have bilingual staff available. In the North County, they can also join that virtually, so you don't have to physically walk in. And on Mondays, same hours, they have a phone number where people can call for support. So the petition gets completed and it goes to the court. The court reviews it then just for face value that everything is completed where it's supposed to be. They're not making any clinical decisions. From there, if everything is completed as it should be, then it comes to behavioral wellness for the clinical review. If the clinical criteria is met, then there's a case management hearing, and there is a care plan that's developed collaboratively with the respondent or others that are involved. The care plan is developed, and the court can approve, the judge will approve all or part of the care agreement. And then the person is entered into the Care Act process and will have review hearings about every 60 days until graduation. So that's kind of the flow of how it works. And there's timelines embedded for all of that, each of those steps. Okay, possible referral entry points. It's really anyone, but it might be from the home or family member of the respondent, and mentioned from the community. So maybe from one of you, co-response teams, first responders, hospitals, homeless services, county behavioral wellness, maybe it's the probation department, tribal jurisdictions, so they can come from anywhere. The collaborating partners, CARE Act, I'll underscore this. This is not a behavioral wellness owned thing. This is owned by the county as a whole. And we've been meeting with a multitude of departments in the county on a regular basis to plan for this for a long, long time. Once somebody is engaged, however, in the CARE Act process, the main collaborating partners will be the petitioner, the respondent, the court, or Judge Stern is the judge involved, behavioral wellness, public defender, and county council. This slide shows the exact same process as that busy slide. It just looks aesthetically a little bit different, but goes through the process. Again, I mentioned this, but who can file a petition? Just about anyone can file a petition. So you've got a lot of options here, but really it's just about anyone. The care plan development. So the care plan, once the court has said that everything looks as it should on the application and it comes to behavioral wellness and there's a clinical assessment and we say, yes, it meets the clinical criteria, then there's 14 days to jointly develop that care plan. And again, it's proposed to the court where the court will approve all of or part of or adopt it into the court order. What's in the behavioral health care plan? If you're familiar, which I suspect many of you probably are, with a behavioral health care plan, it's really all those same components. One thing that's makes the CARE Act unique in the state of California is one of the requirements is if someone is in care court, if they are actively involved, they need to be offered a housing resource. So I say offered because someone may say no thanks, and that's fine, it's voluntary, but we have to have the housing resource capacity to be able to offer to them. So in Santa Barbara County, as I'm sure you're aware, we have different housing resources speckled throughout the county. Same will be the case for care court, but we also at La Posada, because that's one of the newer areas that went up, we have a certain number of beds or small pallet homes that are being held aside specifically for this, where CARE Act participants would have priority to that housing. So that's a little bit unique to the care plan. Medications, which will often be on a care plan for someone with a psychotic disorder, they can be court ordered, but they cannot be forcibly administered, and a respondent cannot be penalized for their failure to comply with medication orders. This is just another slide of the components of a healthcare plan, behavioral health services, medications, the housing resources, again, that are somewhat unique on CARE Act, and then the social services and supports that not only are necessary in a care plan, but to help someone to stay effectively housed. And I know you all know that, how important it is. How does care court end? So a person can graduate with a voluntary agreement from care court. Very empowering. I have if you're interested, a very 3-minute, there's a 1-minute version of a video of in San Diego County who launched care court way ahead of us. They were one of the first ones. They have a video of their first graduate and it's gives you goosebumps, pretty neat. Anyway, so someone can graduate. There can be extensions if the judge determines that that is warranted. There can also be the court can terminate it early if they determine that that is the best step as well. And keeping in mind that it's voluntary, someone can always voluntarily at any point opt out. This slide, and I think this is our last one, also looks really busy, and it's nothing that I think will be unfamiliar to you. But the intent of this is to show that our behavioral health system of care, as is the case in other counties too, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of components, there's a lot of services, there's a lot of off-ramps. So if someone is referred to care court and they are not found to be eligible, we will still be working to engage them in our FSP teams and doing active community outreach and engagement, hoping that we can get them engaged and get them connected with services. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can touch on a few more things and answer any questions. So that's an overview of care court. Now, Landon had mentioned SB 43 as well as Prop 1. So Prop 1, I'll start with that because there's so much conversation taking place right now, and the state is sending out guidelines, but we expect to see revisions to that. But really, Prop 1 is directly connected to the Behavioral Health Services Act, which you may be familiar with. Used to be the Mental Health Services Act. So it changes how that funding is used in county mental health systems. So I would stay tuned on that one. There's actively a meeting in Sacramento today that we have a lot of staff involved in. That one's, anything you hear now would be very subject to change. So I would encourage you to have it on your radar, to be aware that there are going to be new requirements to how that funding is spent, and then get those details as we will be getting them in the near future. SB 43 is that is directly related to expanded language for grave disability. So when a person is evaluated, usually when they're having a behavioral health crisis, they're evaluated to determine if they're a danger to self, danger to others, or gravely disabled as a result of their mental health condition. And that has been the language since 1967. So it's a long time coming change in language. And in a nutshell, and I've got a whole nother slide deck on this if you'd like to ever dive deeper, but in a nutshell, that language has been expanded in a few ways, but the way that will probably have the biggest impact in our county, it's expanded so that a person can be gravely disabled as a result of a severe substance use disorder. So it no longer has to be just because of a mental health condition. So what that means is that there may be more holds that are written in our community. It means that there may be more psychiatric hospital beds that are used or needed. And it would need to be, if a person is hospitalized based on a severe substance use disorder, making them gravely disabled, then of course it would need to be a facility that has that specialty, right? An ability to treat that. So that's not only a challenge in our county, but other counties as well. And then we will likely see more people that go in conservatorships, as is often the case with the current legislation, but now it may be related to a substance use disorder. So all that stuff, counties recognize that, wow, there's a lot of things connected to just the passing and expanding of the language of grave disability. So Santa Barbara County, as well as many other counties, requested to their boards to extend the implementation of SB 43 for a longer period so we can get all these other things lined up. So July of 25, I'm sorry, is when currently Santa Barbara County is planned, and we're actively involved in collaborating with the Public Guardian's Office. They've gotten approval for more staffing and expanded office space. So a lot of things are being put into motion so that we are as ready as possible. We're looking to identify that if it were to go in place right now, who are some likely individuals in our community that would meet the criteria. So that's some of the efforts that we're going through now. CARE Act, I didn't mention this because we've been presenting on it for so long, but now we've actually launched. So CARE Act just launched on December 2nd. We have had, and we know this through our NAMI Mental Wellness Center supports that I told you about, they've already received a couple phone calls from family members and help petitions to be filed. So that's where we are with that. Any questions that you have?
First off, thank you for clarifying all the distinctions between those three. Can I just ask to start, we just, in really basic terms, like what would be the benefit of pursuing this program, the CARE Act program, as opposed to any other of those programs on the continuum that you showed?
That's a really great question. And if you'd like me to send you, or you want me to pull up and play this video from San Diego County, I think it helps to exemplify this. So in San Diego County, as an example, this was a person that was on a conservatorship that wanted to be off their conservatorship, as many do. And so going through the CARE Act process with this whole collaborative planning team to put resources in place to help the person and so forth, they were able to do that. And so we're looking at the same in Santa Barbara County. So who are some individuals that are currently living in an IMD that maybe if they had the oversight of a care plan in the courts, would be able to step down and be here in the community. So that's one example. What are some other examples? I've had the opportunity to hear these amazing stories from other counties, but another story, the woman was actually on, I don't know, she was broadly aired in the news far outside of our county, but her son had been living on the streets for many, many years. He was very ill. Nothing had worked for him. And so she, why not? She gave CARE Act a try. And through the court process, and keep in mind, when we think of court, we think of putting on our best clothes and walking into a courtroom. That's not how this CARE court is structured. It could be, but it offers a lot of flexibility. So her son had this amazing care team that did a tremendous amount of outreach and engagement just to build that trust. And then they introduced the court and the judge through an iPad next to him in his sleeping bag on the street. And that gave the structure that was needed to get this care plan set in a very non-threatening way. And her story is so incredibly powerful, but she says it saved her son's life. And it brought him back to being off the streets, back to being her son where she could feel safe. He has a tremendous amount of treatment and support. So will it work for everyone? No, and the criteria is very narrow. I don't know, maybe they'll change it later. But for some, I think it's going to be an incredible resource. For some, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I used to manage our mental health treatment court program. And even at that time, individuals would come in and they could say to their peers, I can't do that right now. I got the judge on me, or whatever the reason was, but it gave them that structure and support they needed. And in this case, in a very creative, flexible way to move forward with their recovery.
Thank you.
Yep.
Got a question from Jose.
Yep, I see that.
So much, well, kind of, but more on a particular individual who has very serious mental issues. And I had problems with this individual, as many others, especially a lot of the coffee shops in town. When I was homeless, I really had some issues with him as well. And stands about 6 foot tall. Used to have a cane twirler, hang out at the courthouse a lot. And very well educated, very well spoken. Graduated Cal Poly some years back. And it was a few years ago that they managed to get housing down in Ventura. And for some strange reason, I don't know why they're back on the streets, but they're back here in Santa Barbara. A friend of mine who goes to the farmer's market, I'm not sure if it was this particular time at the farmer's market, told this individual, please do not smoke. You're not supposed to be smoking. Well, this person just went totally psychotic, yelling and screaming, and followed my friend all the way to Dune Coffee Shop there on State and Figueroa, and was standing outside, yelling and screaming, threatening my friend.
Jose, real quick, this actually might not be the right place to talk about the specifics of this individual story, but if your question is about how to seek support, we can talk about that.
Yeah, well, okay, so what is one going to do to seek support for somebody like this? My friend was scared. Yeah. Really, really frightened. And they're still bouncing around, on State Street. So how is, how's this person going to get the help? And Santa Barbara Police Department, they already know who this individual is. So my question is, what can be done?
Yeah, there may be a lot of people that know this individual. As you know, engaging in mental health treatment for the most part is voluntary. If someone's experiencing an acute psychiatric crisis, then there's the ability to place somebody on a hold, as you know, and be hospitalized for a temporary period of time. And those holds can be extended, and there's conservatorships. But outside of that, mental health treatment is voluntary. That makes it tricky. CARE Act, I'll toss this in case your the person you're talking about fits the criteria. Many people have said, well, I think the person is psychotic. I mean, they sure look like it, but I don't know their diagnosis. I don't have any clinical information. Anyone can file a petition, and under the area where you describe the clinical diagnosis, you can simply put what you've observed. You don't have to have a clinical background, even if you are a clinician or whatever. You can just put person seen talking to themselves, yelling to others, responding to others in inappropriate with things that describe the symptoms and behaviors. And maybe CARE Act is something that can help this person. At minimum, it will be another effort to get them pointed in the right direction and engage people in the mental health system that can continue to try and engage with that person.
Thank you. Any other questions for Suzanne? Go ahead.
Landon, you tell me the best way to get this to you or your team. But there is a webpage on the behavioral wellness website with a lot of information, brochures you can download, the petition, FAQs, all that about CARE Act. So I want to make sure you have that as a reference. I can give you I just saw Serena. Hi, Serena.
Hi, I've been here. Sorry. So I put that in the chat with the link.
Oh,
and then
thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then I put the hours and phone number
Perfect.
for the walk-in hours for the Mental Wellness Center, as well as the phone number for the helpline.
And then I can show you a short video if you want to see CARE Act in San Diego County, or we can put that in the chat, whatever you prefer. But thank you.
Yeah, let's save it for the chat. That would be great if you can share that out, though.
Yep. Serena, anything you would add? I'm so sorry I didn't see your face here.
No, that's no problem. I think you covered it all fabulously. And if anyone has questions, please go ahead. I have been assigned for temporarily as the care court psychologist. So I had the opportunity to be in court last week for the first court. And as Suzanne said, it is really, different than I think all of us imagine what court is. Judge Stern has asked to be the one in charge. It is in collaboration with mental health and the LPS court. So we already have a couple people that are lined up. I've had several meetings already collaborating with the many different partners throughout the county, with the public defender representative, with caseworkers, about how we're going to best outreach and support these people who are interested in stepping down. First, a couple clients or individuals who want to step down from conservatorship. So I'm really excited for this opportunity to have this creative, voluntary court process that really provides incentives and opportunities for people, rather than what folks imagine is like a punitive process. So yeah, it should be interesting as we see what's to come.
Just one last kind of language question. I think because we see voluntary, but then we also see that it's they can get a court-ordered treatment plan. And so can you just help clarify, because those two sound contradictory when you put them next to each other?
Right. So important to remember, it's not a criminal court. It's a civil court. And so if somebody agrees to participate in the CARE Act process, then they are going to have a care plan that the court oversees. If at some point they say, I don't want to be a part of this process, a couple of things could happen. So one, the judge, maybe they're doing well and the judge chooses to graduate them earlier. It probably won't be right at that moment, but they'll close out the plan. Or if someone's really doing poorly and the judge is aware, it could, point someone towards an IMD, which it would have a different, if someone's conserved, then they have different requirements. But it's a voluntary process. So failure to comply isn't going to end up, as a legal thing at any point down the line. And if someone chooses not to be a part of it, then they technically can walk out, but hopefully they will get pointed in another direction.
That's great. Thank you. Yep. Any last questions for Suzanne? You got some kudos in the chat. Thank you so much for giving your time and also for sharing the links. I'll share these out in an email afterwards as well.
And Serena, thank you so much. I'm very grateful Serena is here and could speak, because she's really been a partner in getting this information out. And and leading the program very well.
Thank you. We appreciate you both.
All right, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. So for the final part of our meeting today, I wanted to take a little bit of time just to talk about our broader South County efforts and kind of what's next. Some of you may be aware that we've been working on a one-year strategic plan that wrapped up just this year. And now we are in the process of developing a 3-year strategic plan for addressing homelessness in South County. Of course, this is all in alignment with everything that's being done at the county level too, and at the city levels. So there's strategic plans all over the place, but we just want to take some time to talk about what's being done at the South County-wide level with this Act on Homelessness initiative. I'm going to share my screen once more. So just a reminder, I shared this at the beginning of the meeting, but Act on Homelessness is this South County coalition addressing homelessness. This was really started by the city of Santa Barbara, and they've since grown it. So now we have the cities of Goleta and Carpinteria involved as well, and county partners. At this point, we have quite a few partners that are involved on the leadership and the steering committee. You can see a lot of different kinds of agencies involved. And then I just want to note, we also have individuals who have experienced homelessness in that leadership committee because we want to make sure we're learning from their expertise as well. So these are kind of the folks who have really helped design this, this strategic plan. If you are curious about this last one-year strategic plan that we just completed, I encourage you to go and download the full one-year report at sbac.org/AOH for Act on Homelessness. But I did want to just note a couple of highlights. Number one is that we did have a focus on trying to help ensure that individuals with high acuity behavioral health needs, so it could be mental health needs or substance use needs or both, were getting off the streets. And so we did have 8 individuals exit from street level homelessness and or were successfully enrolled in behavioral health programs. A handful of those were actually able to get into permanent housing, which we're really thrilled with. And we're going to be, you'll see in the coming slides, we're going to be trying to expand this goal in the next 3-year plan. Another success was that we were able to increase local media coverage regarding homelessness issues. We're trying to help educate the community more and more about what's true and what's not, what's myth and what's fact about homelessness. So we had a nearly 50% increase in stories between 2023 and 2024. I think notably too, we also had stories that were specifically about behavioral health and homelessness, which we didn't have in 2023, and vehicular homelessness. And then one of our ongoing goals that we didn't meet this year, but we're hoping to keep reaching for, is to try and identify 20 additional overnight RV parking spaces for the Safe Parking program. Earlier, Catherine mentioned we need daytime spaces also. So just in general, if you know someone who owns a parking lot or who owns a building that parking lot is not used for either the daytime or nighttime hours, it'd be really important for us to get in touch with them. So we've been building this 3-year strategic plan, and many of you all have actually been involved with this. You may recall back in June, if you can think that far back, we did a survey asking you all, hey, what should be our priorities for our new 3-year strategic plan? So a lot of you responded and gave us some helpful feedback about areas to focus on. We then did some interviews with key stakeholders in the community about, okay, here's what's coming up in the surveys. What do you think? We've reviewed this with the steering committee 2 different times to talk about draft goals, had some more discussions with key stakeholders once we had those draft goals. And then finally, just this last month, we were able to ratify some of those specific focus areas. So this has been a long time coming, developing this strategic plan together with all of your input. We want to make sure that we're hearing from everyone in the community as we create this. And I do want to note too, in the coming slides, I'm going to be showing some of those kind of goal areas, but this is the part where I'm really going to ask for your input. So my ask to each of you is for every single one of you to provide some feedback. There's going to be a written, optionally anonymous survey for you to just share, here's what I think you should do to try and reach these goals. And I'm going to just go ahead and actually pull up that link now so I can put it in the chat. I would love for every single person on this call to take just a few minutes at the end to fill this out, and I'll give some time for that. But just be thinking about that as we go through this, because we need community input, right? It can't always be the same service providers and local experts that are making the decisions. We really need community member creativity as well. So I just want to start by noting we're trying to kind of reach a whole lot of different areas, right? Because addressing homelessness is not just like, let's say, responding to encampments, and it's not just providing behavioral health services. There's a whole spectrum, a whole continuum of things you need to provide in order to really end homelessness in your community. So we're trying to address all these 4 different areas that are listed here, and you'll see that on the next slide. All right, so here are kind of the 4 goal areas that we're going to be working on. And I don't have the specific numbers up just yet because I want to keep this broad for our conversation today. So number 1, our goal will be focused on increasing the number of households diverted from homelessness. So for anyone who's not familiar with diversion, this is where if someone has just entered homelessness, we try and quickly get them back into housing. It's often much easier if someone is just newly homeless, like within the last couple of weeks, to get them back into housing than it is if we wait. And then they have the compounded trauma of experiencing homelessness, and maybe they've lost their documentation. So we really want to increase the number of households that are diverted from homelessness pretty quickly after they become homeless. Number 2, we want to facilitate individuals with high acuity behavioral health needs exiting street level homelessness. We want to see these individuals getting into both shelter and tiny homes and interim housing, and also into permanent housing with supportive services. Number 3, we want to reduce the number of returns to homelessness. This has been an ongoing concern in our community. Something the county is taking really seriously is that we have relatively high numbers of people who become homeless again once they get housed compared to some of our neighboring counties. And so we really want to reduce that number of individuals by coming around them and supporting them. And then finally, we want to improve attitudes towards homelessness among key stakeholder groups. And the main reason we say attitudes there is because we know that attitudes really influence people's beliefs and what they are willing to support. If we want for our community to support initiatives to help end homelessness, we're going to need to build empathy. We're going to need to build understanding, and that takes time. So we really want to improve those attitudes. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking because here's the part where I would love for each of you to just take a minute here to fill out this survey for me. And I realized I think I actually put the wrong link in the chat window. So this, what's on the screen now is what it should be. And I'm going to delete that in the chat. So you're going to want to go to menti.com, and then the code you'll use is 17945039. And the question there is, what actions could we take towards these goals? We just want you to really spitball for us. Use your creativity. We're not expecting well thought out answers here, but we are hoping for just some creative juices flowing from maybe some of the people who are seeing homelessness day in and day out and may have some thoughts that we might not think of otherwise. So I'm just going to give you maybe 2 minutes to work on that survey. And I'm seeing that code is not working. I'm going to give you a different code. 3566 2967. There, I will delete the old code, but I've put the updated Menti code in the chat window. We'll just give it 2 minutes and then we'll come back together. 'Thank you. I do see responses coming in. One more minute and then we'll come back together. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you humoring me with this. I will keep this survey link open, and I'll send this out via email as well. But we really appreciate community input on this because, like I said, a lot of us that are in the homelessness world day in and day out are used to doing things the same way. So it's sometimes helpful to get outside perspectives on how we can address these same issues. One other survey, I'm not going to make us take this one right now, but I did just want to note this. We are working on trying to just refine how we run this whole collaborative, because we know that in some ways it doesn't work for everyone, and we want to make sure we keep improving as we go. So these questions are more about how these meetings are facilitated. What do we think of the reps? What else do we need to be doing? So I really encourage you, at whatever level of participation you have participated in the Act on Homelessness Collaborative, please take 5 minutes to just complete this survey. I put it in the chat window there. All right, we've got quite a bit coming up. Mentioned a couple of these things already, but for the downtown Santa Barbara wrap, our next meeting will be on December 12th. So it's this Thursday at 3. On this Friday the 13th, we will have our next East Side wrap meeting on Zoom. The longest night, as I mentioned, is on December 21st at 5:15 p.m. The point in time count on January 22nd. And then finally, our next large quarterly all-call meeting like this will be on March 10th. So we've showed a couple of different ways to take action today, and I just want to highlight those again. We really would love for you to share those homelessness response directories to anyone that you think might benefit from them. Help spread the word and volunteer for the point in time count. We're going to need a lot of folks. And then finally, help share your input and get involved in the collaborative efforts. The more input you can give us, the more we can help tailor kind of what we do in a way that's helpful for you all to participate. So we really encourage your input if you can. And then finally, if you're interested to join our newsletter, just so you have a little more of a sense of what's going on a regular basis throughout South County with homelessness, we encourage you to sign up. So with that, we'll go ahead and end our meeting today. I just want to say thank you all again for being here. Again, I encourage you, if there was something of interest to you today that you heard, reach out. Let's try and keep building this web together. So if I don't see you before, happy holidays, everyone. Appreciate your time today. Take care, all. Yeah, Nancy, I see your question in the chat about the writing in the newsletter. We do have individuals with lived experience sometimes share stories. I'd love to keep expanding that. All right, take care, everyone.